Hey guys, welcome to the weekly question video where we answer your questions. If you want to submit a question for one of these videos, the best way to do that is to leave a comment down below, or you can email us or send us a DM on Instagram. Details on how to do that are in the description box, as well as a link to our Patreon if you want to support what we are doing here.
Right.
So today's question came from a comment that we received on one of our other videos. It came from one of our patrons, in fact, and the video that she was referring to was the video that we talked about how a taken in hand can honor and affirm the position of the head of household in small everyday interactions. And her question was, how does a head of household do the same thing for his taken in hand and give the taken in hand what she needs in those small everyday ways?
I think one of the first things that I would say that I am trying to do a better job of, but I actually don't do as good a job as I should. And this kind of goes back to our video, that if you saw our video on the love languages, this goes back to something that really works for Arya, and I try to get better at it, is I try to give her affirmation. I try to let her know that I appreciate when she's following the rules, when she's done a good job. Perfect example is it can be as simple as one of her tasks is making sure that the dishes are done every night and that the kitchen is back kind of in order. It doesn't have to be a deep clean, but that it's clean and it's in order and it's ready for the next day. I really try to make sure that's one of the areas that I try to make sure to say, hey, I really appreciate that you did that. The kitchen really looks great. Thank you for taking the time to do that. And just giving her those words of affirmation. And if she does something good, or if I notice that there was a situation where maybe in the past she would have responded poorly, but she responds better this time around, I try to make sure to say, hey, I really appreciate that you came to me with a concern, or that you had a point to make, but you did it in a respectful way, that you did it in a way that didn't undermine my authority, but you were still able to get your point across. And so that's one of the ways that I think you can honor your taken in hand, especially if they need words of affirmation, is to really acknowledge when they're doing well and really give them that pat on the back or that hug and tell them, hey, you're doing a really good job, and I really appreciate that. That's what you're doing.
I think it all really comes down to wanting to feel valued. That is, like, as
Good
a
point.
taken in hand, I want to know that he values me to the point where he really wants me to feel cherished, that he wants me to feel like I am an asset to his life. And so for me, anything that kind of affirms that, anything that kind of gives me that feedback is going to be beneficial. And so with me, like, little things are, he does appreciate the efforts that I make, that he really appreciates my obedience, and he tells me those things. But even more than that, he's happy to be around me. He doesn't avoid me. He doesn't act like me coming to him or expressing a need. He never acts like it's a burden. He's always very
Mm.
receptive to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think those are the small little everyday ways that Coda really does honor my position as a taken in hand and really affirms me as a person, is that he just allows me to feel valued by how he approaches me and how he interacts with me.
You brought up a good word there, cherish. That's a word that um, many of us spoke on our wedding days to our spouses. And that word cherish really is important. To cherish something means to look at someone and look at them as so precious and so important that you're going to do everything that you possibly can to help them become a better person with you alongside them. And so I'm glad that you brought up that word cherish, because that is something that I think taken in hands. Not that head of households don't necessarily need that, but taken in hands really need to feel like they're the most precious thing in your life, that you care enough about them, that every decision that you make, everything that you do, um, is with them in mind. And that's what it means to cherish someone, is that everything that you decide to do, no matter how big or how small, is with them in mind and with the outcome of their well-being in mind. That's what it means to cherish them. And so I think that's really a great way, if not the most important way, to show the taken in hand that you care about what they're doing.
So, those are really big concepts. What does that look like practically in day to day life? Again, I think just being happy to see them. When you come in at the end of the day or you come in from the other room, I know that it gives me a lot of affirmation, gives me a lot of like feelings of security for Coda to just smile at me and, hug me or give me some sort of affection. I'm a big physical touch person. If you listen to our podcast on the love languages, you'll know that. And so for me, that physical reconnection of a hug, of a kiss, of some sort of physical interaction, that is going to really give me the perspective that he loves me, he cherishes me, he enjoys interacting with me. Even like a hug from behind, that's probably one of my favorite things, is if I'm busy doing something and he just comes up behind me and hugs me from behind. Those small gestures of physical connection without it turning into um, sexual touch, because I think a lot of men really do enjoy interacting with their wives, with their taken in hand partners sexually, but that's not practically what every taken in hand needs with every physical
Right,
interaction.
absolutely.
Um, and so just be mindful that you are being affectionate without being overly sexual all the time, because that can
Yeah.
feel kind of daunting.
Yeah, and the other thing is that, because you want to have a healthy balance of everything, right? Because if a relationship doesn't have enough of certain things, then it's unbalanced. And we talk a lot about on this podcast about keeping things balanced. And so make sure that you're giving, you're taking in hand those times where you're just showing them affection. There's no end game involved in that, other than just showing them affection and letting them know that you care about them, that you love them.
Also, encouraging them to prioritize themselves. Sometimes,
Yes,
especially as
big one.
women, we tend to pour out to everyone else. And for our head of household to come in and just say, I want you to go relax. I want you to um, read that book that you've been reading. I want you to even like go do something for yourself within your means, of course, but that time to just say, hey, and even if you have like a taken in hand that, they're like, but I have so many other things to do, to come in and say, let me handle the dishes tonight. You
Mm.
go do something for yourself, because you really, I want you to prioritize your own well being. I want you to take care of yourself. I value you enough to want to see you thrive. And so, those little ways that you can find to maybe take something off their plate or encourage them to prioritize themselves in a meaningful way for them, even if that's like, hey, just go get coffee by yourself, anything like that, or call a friend and see if you can plan a lunch date this week to go have that connection with a friend. Anything like that is going to help your taken in hand see that you value them, that you value their well being, and that you want to see them thrive and being taken care of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Those are all really, really good things. Those are all really, really good things. And some things that I need to work on myself. So,
I am really trying to rack my brain thinking of other ways. I think that it's just kind of getting a healthy connection. Our head of household, they lead us. And that leadership is a way that I feel valued, that I feel taken care of. And that's really the feelings that you want to invoke in your taken in hand is you want them to feel valued, you want them to feel taken care of, you want them to feel loved and cherished. And so trying to find ways that creates those feelings in a meaningful way. um, what I can say is don't ignore your taken in hand. Don't be selfish with your time. Don't be selfish with your resources. All of those things are counterproductive to creating those feelings. And so just think of ways to be generous.
And have those conversations. We talk a lot about on here about communication being the key. If your relationship potentially is going through some hiccups right now, and taking in hands, if you're watching this and listening to this, and you're not maybe feeling cherished or appreciated or loved, have a conversation with your head of household. He may not even know, and you guys need to have a conversation. And by having those conversations, then he can do a better job of showing you affection and showing the things that you need. And so this just comes down to the fact to have communication, have conversations about what you both need to get on that same page so that you can both really honor and love one another and really show the respect and the cherishing that you need to do in your relationship.
Because it's not a one size fits all.
No.
This is really going to be very individualized for who you are and for who your head of household is and how you interact as a couple. But I hope that these points really helped you kind of have maybe a starting point of understanding, maybe something to think about, to consider what would work best in your relationship, and maybe some things to try out. But again, very, very individual. You have to have that conversation, but hopefully this will kind of get those wheels turning to help you consider where to go from here. So,
Yeah. So I hope that answers your question.
thanks, guys. We will talk to you next week.
See you later.